Okay, this is Brother Lewis Montgomery, and I'm very pleased to introduce Brother Freeman Sands. Brother Sands, first of all, good evening and welcome to the broadcast.
Good evening, Lewis. Thanks for the invitation.
Oh, it's our pleasure to hear your story, brother. So, if you don't mind, tell us more about. We know your name. Tell us where you're from and where you went to college.
Okay, I, I'm a country boy from Cooksville, Maryland. Initially raised in Bushy, Howard County, which turns out I learned to be a tract of wooded territory left by previous owners for the slaves.
Really?
I grew up in a community of African American families, and they were very responsible. They had their own homes and they provided for themselves. I learned to live off of the land, but it was country. It was very country, and I would say I got electricity for the first time in 10th grade. But in spite of that, it wasn't long after I believe it was fifth, at age 5. My mother got a washing machine, a Maytag washing machine, and she ended up getting a Philco refrigerator freezer. Now,
Okay.
Dad got those, and I always held them in high esteem because of that. They were motor driven gadgets, but instead of complaining, he did the best he could with what we had. So I thrived on that and learned very fast to appreciate what we had. I was the kid raised that asked 1,000 questions and would do anything to make a quarter. But being raised in the country, in that type of environment, you had a chance to evidence African American families thriving, doing
Mm-hmm.
things that would make you proud and make you want to be involved. And if you saw the movie The Color Purple, you
Mm-hmm.
basically have seen the way I was raised. I
Okay.
did, as a young man, basically all of those things. So I was very country, but determined, very determined young man. And very early, I learned that I was surrounded by love. That group of people looked out for each other. They knew what community was for. And there was a saying that you go to the store just get salt. Other than that, they will provide for themselves for everything else.
Okay. That's great.
So that's my background. And many, many times, people would do things that would say, kid, you can do this, kid, you can do that. Why are you doing that? And oh Lord, we just lost it. For some
No, we're
reason,
good.
it
Keep
just
going.
yeah. So they were attentive to me because I was always following somebody around to do something, cut grass, haul wood, or things like that. I started off with the intent of a career in agriculture.
Mm-hmm.
I took FFA or 4-H in school and had a pig that I raised in a project. So I took care of that dog, and I guess because the way I did it, my parents chimed in and would help me, and the neighbors chimed in and would help me. They saw what was going on, and I think they truly appreciated what I was trying to do to take care of that animal. But she turned out to be like a pet for the family, and I kept her for many years.
Okay.
But it wasn't long thereafter that I had to change. I was a typical country boy, traveling around in the car, tinkering with cars, things like that, and staying in trouble. Just one thing after the other, but not really with any target or any career goals in mind. And through school, I was a devil, always in trouble. And one thing after the next, I would be at the principal's office being disciplined. And I made the good fortune of taking a test around grade 9, I believe it was. And my score brought attention to me. And my counselors and the principal decided it was time to have a heart-to-heart conversation with me about my future and where I was headed and how to get there. And that changed my life, and I've never regretted it. So,
very good. So yeah. So tell us, where'd you go to college, and then very closely behind that, how did you choose to become a member of Alpha Phi Alpha?
Sure. College for me wasn't a thought. It was not something that I even entertained or knew anything about it. And when I was in school, believe me, I experienced what is often written about the one-room classroom or classes in the living room, classes in the hall. I went through all of those to survive in that institution. But college was never a concern until that exam came up. And fortunately for me, I have a family name identity where my cousins were all exceptional students. They went through school and left a legacy, and everybody expected me to do it. I just didn't know it. That was why I didn't know I was supposed to do it. But they wanted me to. They encouraged me to be the first member of my family to go to college. And at the time this was presented to me, Brother Montgomery, it was late. They had done some preliminary work at Morgan to inquire about the possibility of a scholarship. And they were told there was one way for me to get in, but it required me to commit myself to do it and to do it all exceptionally well. And that's what happened. I had to buckle down and decide that that was what I wanted. And once I did, the community, to include my road running buddies, all rallied behind me. They wouldn't even let me go out with them on Saturday nights anymore. They called me the bird. You got to study, Freeman. You got to study. They wanted me. My neighbors wanted me. My church wanted me to go to college.
Yeah.
And so I had that blessing. I was able to turn on the brain light up there, and from that point on, there was no stopping me.
Okay.
I had no stopping me. And then just one thing after the other. When you develop that attitude that I can, I will, you'll do it if you have to.
Yeah.
I had to take a class without taking a class. And I exceeded, expectations, got an A in them. They were flabbergasted. That was algebra. My first year of algebra, my track coach taught me. After practice, he taught me my first year of algebra. And then, as luck would have it, and this is where parents come in if we only give them a chance. My dad has started to talk about building a house and acquire some land. And we're sitting down one night at the table, and he said to me, Freeman, we're going to land on the corner. I'm going to build a house. But I have to do footing, it's pouring concrete to start the wall. And he says, but I don't know how to figure out the cubic feet of cement that I need. And you're taking all this fancy chemistry and math. I need you to help me. I need you to figure out how much cement I need to order to get that job done. Well, needless to say, I didn't want to disappoint him. When I got back to school, I went to my track coach. Sat down and talked to him and told him what I was up against. He said, no problem, young man. We're going to do it. And I'll always remember, I sat down 2 evenings with him and made that calculation, and it worked. And from that time on, it wasn't a bed of roses, but you couldn't deny me anything if I wanted. I would just hell bent on succeeding and doing well.
Very good. So tell us how you got exposed to and chose to become a member of Alpha Phi Alpha.
Well, I entered Morgan on a full scholarship.
Okay.
And again, it was the name identity. Coming in as a freshman, I was what they would probably call unique for them to pick on. But when they discovered that I was a Sands, I realized I had some issues to deal with because of my cousins. They were what do you call them, brigadier generals, student government presidents, and all those kind of things. They
Mm-hmm.
went to the top and everything. And one thing that happened was the one brother, or I should say, the one cousin that was closest to me had just left the year before, was student government president.
Mm-hmm.
And he succeeded in having the Greeks kicked off campus because of abuse.
Mm.
And they were kicked off campus. So I'm there with the football players, and that's their time to play and pick on me.
Mm-hmm.
But they were allowed about halfway through that year to start the Sphinx Club. And that's when it all started. The Sphinx Club was the time where you were invited in and you got a free pack of cigarettes.
Okay, a free pack of cigarettes.
Yeah, free pack of cigarettes. We go to get that cigarette, those cigarettes.
Now, is that why they call it a smoker?
What's that?
Is that why they call it a smoker?
Yeah.
They gave guys cigarettes?
Yes, free cigarettes. So my very first smoker I attended, young brother named it'll come back to me. Said to me, "You're saying you ought to come by and smoker. I think you're gonna like what you're hearing." I said, "What do you mean?" He says to me, "What school did you tell you? What school did you say you were from?" And I said, "Harriet Tubman in Cicero." He said, "Who was your principal?" And I said, "Saul Scrap." And he says, "Do you know he's an alpha man?" I said, "No." Had no idea Saul was an alpha man.
Hmm.
But now I understand why he was the kind of man he was.
Mm-hmm.
And so I went to Smoker and they interviewed me. And this guy said to me, I've got to present you to the brothers. So what am I going to tell them? Why are you here? What do you want to be? And he said, and I said to him, "Well, I like science. I want to prove something to my science teacher." And he was a hard dude at the high school. I want to prove something to him. He says, "Well, what are you going to be?" He said, "I'm going to be a pediatrician. I'm going back home to New York and be a pediatrician." "What are you going to do?" And I said, "I'm going to be a laboratory technician."
Mm-hmm.
And he said to me, "Freeman, I can't introduce you to these guys and tell them you want to be a laboratory technician. You got to want to be something better than that."
Mm-hmm.
And that is the truth. He said, "So you tell me you want to be a research scientist. That's what I'm going to introduce you as."
Okay.
I'm losing you the screen totally.
No, you're doing just fine. I still see you.
Okay, great. So I did. I told him I wanted to be a research scientist. Well, oh gosh, Alan, his name is Alan. This one yet while he did. He went on and became a full colonel in the military and is practicing in New York today. And I did become a research scientist. In fact, I won the freshman award as most outstanding student in chemistry. But that led me on my way to the career that sustained me for many, many years.
Yeah. So after college, well, two things about your college Alpha experience. What year did you become a member of Alpha Phi Alpha, and in what chapter?
Okay, I became a member in December of 1957. It might be December 7th, 1957, and it was Beta Alpha at Moyer.
That's great.
But it's the college experience that one enjoys. Yeah, I mean, it's different. You end up with a different fellowship, a different attitude, and a different concept about life. Because everybody around you started to think like you, and everybody wants to be somebody.
Mm-hmm.
On the college campus, the Pan-Atlantic was at its best. We supported each other. We knew each other's hymns, and singing was the joy of our lives. So they would look forward to each other's lines coming off. They'd be out there on the bank somewhere wondering, even in the wee hours of the morning, they'd wait for you to come out.
Mm-hmm.
That
Yeah,
college life is something to behold. It is fantastic.
sure, absolutely. I bet.
My best experience as an alpha man would be the night I went home.
Hmm.
It was different. They did things a little differently. It was really serious. I mean, we were very close to the alumni chapter in Baltimore City,
Mm-hmm.
and they had the guidance counselors and all the relatives. Sometimes they're more headache than the brothers or parents, but they would be there. And you were always doing something. They constantly had you moving. You know, these brothers exposed me to people like Duke Ellington, Martin Luther King, Thurgood Marshall, all those guys. I had a
Mm-hmm.
chance to rub shoulders with them, one reason or another. But the
Nice.
night I went over, they burned an A. And I mean, it was a big A down on the parking lot. And I'll never forget, they hit that bottom part of the A and those things roared up. That campus lit up, the windows flew up, and everybody knew the Alphas were offline. We're coming
Mm-hmm.
over. And it was
Nice.
really something, I really enjoyed that. But I tried to learn from it because, I learned a lot from the fellowship. I
Mm-hmm.
was often into a different kind of world than my family, but throughout life, I've never regretted any part of it.
That's great. You touched on it a little bit, but after college, what did you do for a living?
I left, one, I didn't leave. I, I guess around my junior year, I started focusing on ROTC. I
Mm-hmm.
was a member of the Pershing Rifles trick drill team, and you 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 again you develop a style, a rhythm about yourself,
Mm-hmm.
and that sort of got me a military career. I was looking for a job. What would be best going into the military? So I dedicated a lot of time to ROTC, and in fact became the regional review board for the whole area. When I say review board, it was competition among
Mm-hmm.
colleges. But we were African American school, so you know what place was reserved for us. And yeah, that's right.
Mm-hmm.
Not one. It was reserved for you. And I distinctly recall one episode where we all got into trouble. We ran into a young lady that's queen who could pass for white. And she was a absolutely gorgeous woman, even pretty outside than inside. But she was at Queen, and we were at Duke King University.
Mm-hmm.
We had developed what I'll call a silent drill, meaning that once the commander gave commands for you to enter that field, not a word was said.
Mm-hmm.
You went through every one of your motions and left. And they
Mm-hmm.
were flabbergasted. They were absolutely shocked.
I think that was pretty amazing.
Yes, absolutely shocked. And I'm down on top of these guys down at the VPI and all these fancy schools down in Virginia, the Westport and all of them. They were flabbergasted. What in the name of heaven do boys do? And
Mm-hmm.
we were good. We were good. And the night of review had a banquet, and you walk in, and the sergeant who was the commander for us at the drill team had the queen on his arm and escorted her down the aisle. Well, that wasn't so bad. We enjoyed that, but then we came out to get on the bus, and those fools started that racial stuff.
Mm.
How can we get this white woman to be our queen?
Mm.
Oh, Lewis, It was a mellow mess.
I bet it
We had
was.
trouble, police involved, and Joel, Jenkins was his name, kicked us off campus. So you can't have any more jokes. You're gonna be suspended for a whole year. But I'll guarantee you, if that young lady walked in here today, we would embrace and we'd laugh, and she will replay it. Freeman, that was all of us.
Yeah, I bet. Hey, let's talk about your involvement as an alum with Kappa Phi Lambda. So tell us how you've been involved with KPL.
It's interesting, Louis. It is really interesting because you never know how things going to turn. But if the desire is there, you can conquer it. I left Morgan and lived in the Baltimore area. And I got a chance to live as an alpha man, the frat house and all that stuff. Staying in trouble. But never thought about anything past that point. I can remember we started an investment club very early when this thing about investment, this organized group for investment groups. We had a group of 10 of us got together and we were good. We raised money, sent over to the people that were with King in that mud hole over there in New York. But I mean, not New York, over in DC. But anyway, I moved to Columbia because I had been on Liberty Road, and Martha and I knew what it was to fight this racial stuff. And the more you knew all about it, because you had to not accept it. And there was just some weird stuff that came down. So we were in tune with that throughout our lives, and couldn't buy a thing. In those days, you couldn't even buy a house. That's true. You could not buy a house. Louis, we were living in what is called Evanston Village. And one Sunday morning, the newspaper hit the press, and it was a editorial from the major builder and the financier in Baltimore City that said that from this moment on, any property that he owned was available to anybody who had the money. This thing called racial discrimination had to stop, and you could buy a house. Man, all hell broke loose. You couldn't see how many of us had to sit around holding on to our little bucks, waiting for that opportunity to buy. And I ended up in Howard County for my son to get him into the best school out there, which was Centennial High School. That school was paving the way. Strive for excellence was a thing, and everybody wanted to go to Centennial. Well, when I got to Centennial, knew who I met. Brothers who were alpha men. That's what happened. Brothers who were alpha men. And we all hit it off. From that moment on, we all wanted the same thing. We wanted the best for our families. We didn't buy a house where we wanted to. And that started it. And I never really became serious until there was a need or a desire. In talking to the kids, I learned about the Martin Luther King Memorial Breakfast. And everybody talked about that breakfast. So I asked one of the brothers who's deceased, a brother named Ed Young. I said, Brother Young, what do I have to do to get a ticket? I didn't hear all this talk about the Martin Luther King breakfast. I'd like to attend. It's time I get active again. I said, Brother Sayers, I hear you, but there's nothing I can do for you. I said, what do you mean? He said, the breakfast has become so popular, we're out of tickets by the end of October.
Oh, boy.
I said, what? Kid of the Country is the name of the room in Columbia. Still there. No, it isn't. There's fresh foods now. 300 people, Louis. That's all they could get in there. And so I couldn't get in. So I joined. Help on do something about it.
You join the fraternity so you can go to the breakfast.
Yeah, that's right. Here comes Freeman.
Now, I understand that you ultimately became a president of the chapter. Can you tell us about your time as president? What are some of the things you recall doing?
That's all part of it. And a good way to support what we're saying is to get your hand on one your booklet, souvenir booklet. In '85, I ran for president. Well, first year was '84. I ran and was the vice president because I was also to make a change. I'm a person about change. It's if I think there's a possibility, I'll say why not, and I'll approach it that way. So I became vice president, but the president decided not to run for the two, which is the standard. And he says, Freeman, I'm going to step aside. He had some issues, and our brotherhood was tight. I mean, we were tight. These guys are for real. Lewis, you didn't step in and get anything. You had to step in and fight. They were for real. And he got upset about the singing of the hymn. He wanted the hymn sung at the conclusion of the breakfast. And the brotherhood said no. And I'm talking about, when I say no, I'm talking about the guys who were the pillars of the fraternity at that time. They were the founders of that chapter. So he never swallowed that. He never just swallowed it. So he stepped aside and opened up the door for me. And I stepped into it and had no regrets. I probably would say that it was my coming out, so to speak, because I came in with that attitude that we were going to make a change. I was a scientist. I was working in the laboratory. I was working as a research scientist. That's right. I had paved the way. I was the only one that looked like me in that laboratory. And had to pay the price to get there. Pure by luck, purely luck, but you run into things sometimes that blow your mind. And when you're black, you're constantly wondering when the obstacle is coming. But it's time to stop looking because everybody that doesn't look like you is not your enemy. And I'll say this in all seriousness. Jewish people of status are the best friend you can have. They have been there and they want you to do better. They want you to succeed. They want to help you every way they can. So that happened for me. These were Jewish people. A couple times they were Jewish people just stepped up. In fact, one guy who really changed my life was the director of research psychiatry for the state of Maryland, Albert Crumb. And again, it was concern for me. And this young black boy from Oregon, and can't hurt him. You gotta do something to provide for him. I ran into a situation where the laboratory or the research program ran into some very, very rough sailing. And I was in the middle of all that. And I had a gravy. I mean, was a job where nobody checked time or anything. They wanted you to think outside the bubble. Just come up with the questions, why? And ended up building a whole institution out there. In fact, I was in on the designing of the laboratory, the whole floor. So I've been around there for a while. They knew me. And I have a way of doing things to get attention because I'm going to be representing, as the kids would say. I'm going to be representing myself, my family, and African American. When you encounter me, I'm going to look respectful. I'm going to talk respectfully. And I'm going to do respectful things. So people are going to want to become part of that. And that's what happened with this. The government passed a bill that said that the drug companies had to stop issuing research grants to facilities like mine because there was a conflict of interest.
Hmm.
Smith, Klein, and French, and all those big boys would send us $100,000 we wouldn't even sneeze. But they wanted you to try and do anything. They need answers. They need answers. They want to know why it works, how it works, and when it works.
Mm-hmm.
So you can't constrain people and ask them to think outside the bubble too. But they had trouble with the medical schools. The freshman class members, too many of them were flunking, and they decided they had to do a special remedial type training that was going to cost them big bucks, and that's what they did. They started canceling grants,
Mm-hmm.
and that felt like lead brick. If you can imagine dedicating your career, your
Mm-hmm.
life, to a thought, and having been supported by grants all your life, and then be told no, your grant cannot be approved by people that don't even know what you're talking about.
Hmm. Yeah.
That's what happened.
Yeah, that's tough. One last question for you, Brother Sands. You've been an alpha for almost 65 years. What has
Yeah.
being an alpha meant to you?
In summary, I have to say a way of life.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean that in all seriousness and all of its connotations. I've always had, as a result of being an alpha man, a contact. In need I have of somebody who's provided. And uh, being in the presence and company of like minds, when people that want to go somewhere, want to do something, want to be somebody, and you enjoy being in the presence of the alphas that I have been with have been bankers, they've been investors, they've been realtors, you name it, and they have been all those things. But
Mm-hmm.
they, not the fact that they have been, they share, they communicate, they pass along, and look back at a brother who may be having trouble and pull him out. So Alpha has always been a thing where I felt very comfortable in my social network and in the job market. There's a certain determination that you develop as an alpha man. And
Mm-hmm.
not only that, I strongly believe, as I've said when I was Scoutmaster, if you are a candidate for a job and you say Eagle Scout, your application gets pulled and you get pulled to the top. Well, as I've said to you many times, everywhere you go, there's an alpha man there.
There's an alpha man. Yes,
And you
indeed.
never know when those alpha men will come through and come and rescue you.
Mm-hmm. That's
And
great.
that has happened. Early in my married life, I wrecked a vehicle. In fact, it was very early because I was going to Martha's graduation.
Mm-hmm.
Hit the vehicle, smashed it, no insurance, and no money. So they came after me, took my license and everything. And so this young cocky guy says, "Oh, the hell with it. Go ahead and sue me. You're not gonna get anything. I don't have anything." But a family friend had moved in the neighborhood that where Dad built his home. And my mother started talking with him and learned that they were people of means. And they said to my mom, "I think I can help Freeman."
Mm-hmm.
They put me in touch with a judge. His name is Milton Allen. I'll never forget it as long as I live. I had no way of knowing who I'd run into when I met this man. He called me and told me to meet him in his office, that he had been sent by this family to see if he could help me.
Mm-hmm.
I go in, I explain to him what happened. And Lewis, it's interesting how language can affect you. He's an alpha man, right?
So he's an alpha man?
Yeah, he's an alpha man.
Mm-hmm.
He sat me down and read me the Bible.
Mm-hmm.
Boy, you didn't spend 4 years in wanting to be this dumb. Don't you know that man only has to renew that suit every 2 years? You would never own a thing. Oh boy, did he need me to buy that. And that is the truth. So he said, I have promised him that I'll see you through this. We're going to get you through this.
Mm-hmm.
Do what I asked you to do. And just keep it low key. Do not answer questions from anybody.
Mm-hmm.
So I said, okay. Little did I know what was going on. Not only was Milton Allen an alpha man, but I knew his son. I didn't connect it. He was a member of Beta Alpha.
Mm-hmm. Alpha man to the rescue.
Yep, there's that A connection again. And that man met with me 4 times. And the 4th time, we were supposed to go for a judge for final decision. And believe it or not, Nationwide Insurance decided not to hold me responsible for any property damage. And that silver tongue talking judge got that thing down that low. And that's the truth.
Saved by that.
Hey, I'm telling you, Lucas, welcome aboard, brother.
Yeah,
Welcome.
thank you. Thank you.
And, you know, you're the best is in front of you. Yep, the best is in front of you. You already have.
Yep,
And
you've said that. Yep. Well, Brother Sands, thank you so much. This has been a great opportunity to learn more about your journey as an alpha, and thank you so much for your time and for your stories.
Now you would are you out of time?
No, we got you want to say one more thing? We have a little bit of time left.
I want to tell you one thing.
Okay.
Another guy pushing you. Okay, when I ran for president, I had to go to a convention to qualify.
Mm-hmm.
You have to go to a general convention to run as president. I went down a Lambda, drove all the way down there. Ozell Sutton was being installed. Got down there, enjoyed every minute of it, and they have a college brother luncheon.
Mm-hmm.
Which do some speaking and so forth. And we were all sitting there listening to these young college brothers speak. And they basically had some outstanding speakers. And we'd given away the award basically. And the last one to attend stepped up. Never said the guy, white dinner jacket of all things.
Mm-hmm.
Went up to the mic, took a little while, get himself together, stuttered a little bit. And Lewis, that boy took off, and you thought it was Martin Luther King talking. Now, I tell you about this because you know him. And you will hear his name over and over again. But if you look at that book, you'll see that he's been here as a keynote speaker. And that's what my brother will tell you if you ask him about me. He said, that Freeman Sands pulled that one off. I've got him to come up here to speak at the Martin Luther King breakfast. Against all odds. I was fighting tooth and nail with those guys because they wanted Mal Good to do it. And so you said, hey, guys are big names. I said, it's time you have some young voices. And I had Billy Barber to be the speaker. And that's where I made my mark. Billy Barber. You see him all over television.
Oh, sure he is. Yep.
That's the guy.
Yep. Leader of the Poor People's Campaign. Yep.
You got it. You got it. That. So they'll tell you, I'm the one who pulled it off. Paul Bound Good said, don't you ever call me again. Ain't no way I'm supposed to follow that man. This is always a pleasure. We'd be all like
it's a pleasure for me, Brother Sands. Thank you so much for your time this evening, and wish you all the best.
See, thank you. Say hi to my boys from Tub Trade. I said I heard the good news, and I'm very proud of you.
Okay, I sure will.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, well, thank you again, Brother Sands, and good night.
Hey, my pleasure.